The world's biggest leagues are often driven by stars. These athletes don't just win, they draw in casual fans and make the sport feel bigger. When a promotion has a true star, you can feel the difference in the marketing, in the energy, in the aura. The UFC has had its fair share of stars, fighters who lit up the sport and carried entire cards on their name alone. But in today's landscape, with today's roster, one question keeps echoing. Does the UFC have a star problem? On the surface, it seems like a linear question, but the answer is multidimensional. I reached out to a few fellow MMA creators to get their thoughts and to challenge my own. And as you watch, and hopefully like and subscribe, I want to hear from you in the comments. But first, let's break it all down. What brought this topic into the forefront was Alex Pereira losing to Mamed Ankalaev at UFC 313. Alex is arguably the biggest active star in the UFC, and when he lost his belt, the questions started getting louder. Why? Why are the questions getting louder? Because the UFC has long had an unwritten rule. Pay-per-view events are headlined by champions. They are the foundation of a fight card, the anchor around which everything else is built. And if your foundation has cracks, the house crumbles. Let's look at our current champions.
I would say, looking at our current crop of champions, we don't necessarily have like a single global star in the way that we used to when we had fighters like McGregor and Rousey that kind of transcended the sport. I don't even think John Jones qualifies for that. I think the UFC's kind of evolved beyond that now.
Stars drive revenue, bringing in crowds and money, which keeps the UFC thriving and keeps us watching. While stars often earn higher purses than even champions, they pull in the pay-per-view points and the attention. However, managing this is the dynamic that is crucial to making sure that we avoid issues like stars holding onto titles and holding titles at ransom. It's a balance, but ultimately, it's what keeps the UFC ticking.
You can't control who's best, but you can control who they fight. Maybe the problem isn't the talent pool. Maybe it's the matchmaking.
Recent years, I believe we've been spoiled with magnificent matchups, from the UFC. Some of the superstars that they had, big stars, especially, I want to say maybe even during COVID onwards, right? When you look at some of the biggest stars that we had in Conor McGregor, we had Aldo, we had that matchup, we had Conor McGregor versus Khabib. Khabib, we know how big he is, in the UFC and the great work that he did up until he retired. We've seen Izzy versus Bobby Knuckles in Whitaker. We've seen Nate versus Conor. We've seen Usman Masvidal. Masvidal was a big star, in and around the time that he got that matchup with Usman, and we see some of the work that he was doing during that time.
That era of stacked cards and superstar matchups, it felt like lightning in a bottle. Ola's right. We were spoiled. But that might be what's skewing how we view the current landscape. So maybe it's not about lacking talent. It's about how the UFC is choosing to build around it, or not.
I think the way that we look at things now is you have fan favourites. I don't think there's anybody except from potentially Diego Lopez is on his way up, and obviously looking at being a star. We've got Alex Pereira, who has just been the face and the star of the UFC too. So there is a couple of them pocketed in there, but I believe more so now you're looking at a fan favourite than a potential star that's going to reach a whole different audience than what any normal fighter would reach before.
Fan favorites bring energy. They sell merch, they trend online, but do they move the needle in a way that creates must-watch moments? That brings us to another issue.
I think a lot of it has to do with the UFC's lack of promotion, because currently we have a very deep roster inside the UFC with a lot of unique personalities, a lot of very skilled champions, that it seems like the organization and Dana White fail to really push and promote like they used to.
That hits on something deeper. The UFC has the pieces, but are they putting the puzzle together? This might be where the disconnect truly lies.
Fighter pay, better storytelling, building around personalities and not just skills, and obviously just, improving social media strategy. Not all of these people are gurus when it comes to the Instagram game or the Twitter or X game. They need help, and the UFC should definitely be implementing ways of helping them with that. And last but certainly not least, focus on talent instead of location.
People always ask me what I do. I sell holy shit moments for a living.
If Dana White wants to keep selling holy shit moments, then the system needs to change, because these moments, they're the product. Stars make these moments easier, but you don't need them. You just have to work a little harder. You need to build the foundation, craft the stories, set the table for something spectacular to happen. So does the UFC have a star problem? Kind of. But maybe the bigger issue isn't about whether stars exist. It's about whether the UFC has built the ecosystem that allows stars to emerge. Because in the end, stars don't just happen. They're built through opportunity, storytelling, and consistent investment. And if that system's broken, it doesn't matter how much talent you got on the roster. The UFC may not have a star problem. It may just have a system problem. And that system problem shows up in the product, a noticeable lack of holy shit moment. The ones that make headlines, trend worldwide, and convert casuals into fans. These moments used to be the norm, and now they're far more rare. And when your business is built on delivering adrenaline and awe, that's a problem you can't afford to ignore. Until next time.